Well, here in our studio is Sergeant Bryan Lovell with the Bonneville County Sheriff's Office. Every time this week comes, Bryan, I think about 9/11, of course, but then Amber Hoops, who disappeared 3 days later.
Yeah.
And do you think maybe, well, I don't know, I wasn't here back in the day, back during 2001. Do you think maybe her disappearance kind of got lost in the news coverage because of 9/11?
You know, it's possible. Is that what I remember that week? That we were, of course, you know, from the 14th of September on, you know, we were focused on looking for Amber, but at the same time, you know, just flooded with, you know, information about 9/11 and stuff. Information wasn't as available on the internet and things like it is now. So I don't know if it got lost in that coverage. I think the sheriff's office and family and people involved in that case were doing a lot to focus on that, and still had the 9/11 stuff going on in the background as well.
Yeah, social media wasn't around, obviously.
Yeah.
So take us back, because were you the first deputy, one of the first to work on it?
Yeah, so I was working night shift that night, and that call happened in my beat or my area. And I'd only been with Bonneville County for a few months at that time. I'd been working in Jefferson County and north of there for several years. So it was a little bit new just to the sheriff's office. I grew up around here, so I'm familiar with the area. But I ended up taking that call and gathering, you know, the initial information and talking with the Burgeners, Amber's grandparents.
What was the call? What was the call for?
So the call was that there was a missing person. And so I arrived, and it's like 1 or 2 in the morning. And I arrived, and I'm talking with Kathleen and Norris Burgener, and that's Amber's grandparents. They live in a house next to their business there on Lincoln Road. And they're telling me about Amber. They're telling me that, we last saw her here, we're watching TV, and she might have went out to the shop for a little bit. But Kathleen had woke up in the middle of the night and discovered that Amber wasn't in her room. Like, the light was still on, doors open, and she, fully expected her to be, asleep in bed, but she wasn't there. And then shortly after that, as they're looking around, they discover one of their vehicles was missing. And so, I'm on that call just gathering information and going through it with her grandparents, just checking the boxes. Could she be here? Is she with this friend, with this other family, or any family and friends? And, we were kind of eliminating those initial things off the list, as we would do on that type of call. And, we just kept kind of coming to a dead end there, like nothing, she wasn't found anywhere. And so in the course of that, other deputies that were on, there was 3 or 4 of us on that night, came to the area to help as well. One of them, Deputy Thompson, he discovered the pickup that was missing. It's a business pickup, just a little more than a half mile down the road.
Missing from the auto body shop.
Yeah, because I communicated that information kind of over the radio or over, we had these bag phones at the time. And so I communicated that to the rest of the shift, that this is what I got. So, Al Thompson was coming over to help me dig into this some more as the night went on. But on the way there, he discovered that pickup. And then, that just kind of gave us more things to start checking off the list of, you're initially thinking, did she take off on her own? She's 20 years old, and, she could take off on her own if she wanted to. It wasn't like a juvenile runaway type of thing. But, we're trying to dig into, who does she know? Who's her friends? Is this something that she would normally do? Sneak out at night or anything like that? And there was none of that.
Was the truck abandoned?
Yeah, it was abandoned. There's, there on the corner of Ammon and Lincoln Road, there's a Maverick there now. But at the time, that whole neighborhood wasn't there behind it. The Maverick wasn't there. There was a building there that used to be a store, and there was a big kind of gravel parking lot. And so the pickup was abandoned there.
Empty.
Empty, just parked.
Were there any fingerprints? Were you able to check for that stuff back then?
Well, at the time, I don't know as we looked for that right off the bat. I think that truck was examined more thoroughly, down the road after that, or the next day, or in the days past that. I'm not sure. I worked through the night shift, and we got as much as we can, and of course day shift comes on, and we sort of handed that off to them to continue that search.
Sure.
And then of course when I come back on night shift the next night or throughout the rest of the set, we're continuing to look, and we're just going off whatever information has been found at that point. But initially, my involvement was pretty heavy initially there at first, and then it kind of got turned over to other people. But talking with grandparents and about Amber and what kind of person she was and things she liked to do, this just wasn't quite adding up. So it was
For her to just vanish.
Yeah, it was not normal. It was just way out of the ordinary, very, very much out of the normal for her routine.
So she was last seen watching TV there at the house.
Yeah.
And obviously, I assume she didn't have a cell phone because it's
No,
early
yeah.
2000s.
Yeah.
So you can't track that. Any sign of her ever after that night?
No. There's where she might have went from her bedroom in the house out to the shop. There's a computer in there and some exercise equipment and a tanning bed. So beyond those might be the things that she would do at that time of night, between 10 p.m. whenever Kathleen had last seen her there, when Kathleen went to bed. Between there and when Kathleen woke up and discovered her missing, those are the only probable things that she might do, but there's no real indication that she'd done that. She may have went out to the shop at some point, but out there in the shop, that's where the pickup was missing from. And, we were looking through the area. We found tracks through a field. There's fields that run across the back of all those properties for a ways. And, found where the pickup had run over a sprinkler pipe and out through the mud and out onto Lincoln Road and down towards where it was abandoned. How far it went and how long it went, I don't know as we've ever really, exactly pinpointed that, but I know those were things that were looked into in the days after that, since that time.
Did she have a boyfriend?
Not that I remember, not that we knew of.
Right.
Yeah, I think there was some, pen pal type email relationships that they looked into, and those were people that were way far removed from the area.
Right.
And that week, for however many days past that, there had been all the flights in the United States where there's no airplanes in the sky. I remember, they were talking about getting, search and rescue and some other contacts with planes around in our area to maybe try and fly and search some of these areas in the county. And they were going through the obstacles of just being able to get a plane up for that purpose.
Right.
And so there was some of those challenges there, but that also eliminated other things like, out of the area potential suspects. But there really just wasn't anything that was a viable, realistic type of thing that way.
Any sign of foul play in the home?
Not to my recollection. It was really just, she was there and then gone. The only thing that was missing was the clothes that she had on to sleep in, whatever, pajamas or t-shirt or whatever, and sandals that she used to walk from the house to the shop. So it's probable that she went out of the house and over to the shop for, get on the computer or listen to music or whatever, or use the tanning bed. We don't know. That's probable because there was some information that she was on a regular basis going over there doing that, and that's where the truck was taken from. And so the likelihood of that's what happened, or that's the point where she went missing, was there. But at that point, we're trying to determine, did she take the truck? Did she go somewhere on her own? And that was the thing that was odd about it is, if she had relationships and friends, if she decided I'm going to take off and go to the store in the middle of the night, or I'm going to go meet so-and-so, they just called me and they want to go meet or something, that was just not normal for her to grandparents. And if it was, she would tell them about it and say, hey, can I borrow the truck to go do this? And they'd be like, no problem. So for her to just do that without saying anything was very, very much out of the ordinary for her.
Okay, so it's been 23 years. Have there been any suspects?
Following that, there were suspects tied to that. The June following that, June 5th of 2002, one of those suspects had kidnapped a girl outside of IDAHO Falls here, held her overnight, and she was able to escape.
Was this the girl that was sleeping on the trampoline
Yes.
with her friend?
Yes. Her name's Megan. And so she was able to escape from her captor there and identify that person as Mark Hescock. And he was one of the suspects or had ties to the Hoops family and the Burgeners and that business there. And so I know that his tie there he'd been one of the people that were being looked at and vetted, along with everyone else that they could think of at the time, from family to friends to distant family to whoever may have had contact with her. So he was one of those people that of interest, I guess, at the time. And then this following June ends up, kidnapping another person. She's able to get away. We end up in a pursuit with him that goes up into the hills, up through Jefferson and into Madison County, and get end of a road and get stuck, and there's a shooting, and he shoots one of our canine dogs, shoots one of our deputies that injures him, and we end up returning fire and shooting him, and he ends up taking his own life there. So after that point, backtracking the things, his history, the things he'd done, the second kidnapping case, and those things, there were a lot of things that just sort of lined up that pointed towards Amber's case as well.
Right.
And I think over the last couple decades, whatever other suspects were out there, our detectives, the different detectives that have had this over the years, because it's remained active, I think they've done a good job in backtracking anybody else that could be a suspect, any other names and people that come up. But the most likely thing keeps pointing back to Mark Hescock. And so there's just most of this case is, most all of the information we've ever got has been vetted, and up to that point, we've just never been able to finish connecting that last piece and confirming it was him or not him or someone else.
Wasn't he also possibly tied to Stephanie Crane in Chalice?
Yeah, and my involvement in those things hasn't been a whole lot other than working for the same agency that's vetting a lot of that. But I do know that there were similarities in places he had been, things he had done that could have lined up with that case up in Chalice. And that was, a decade or so earlier, 93, I think, so just less than 10 years earlier. So I don't know that case is still active, in Custer County. I don't know that last dot's ever been connected there as well. So you've got two cases with two still missing people almost at the same point that you just can't quite, you haven't found them yet, and we haven't quite connected that last piece.
Yeah, do you think that there would ever be a way to officially say, yes, it was him?
I hope so. This is, I've been at this for 30 years now and grew up around here, and that's probably one of the most significant things I've been involved in, those two pieces of that. And so I know just watching this, I'm a little bit outside looking in. I haven't physically been assigned to that and really worked that, because I was involved in those initial pieces, and then other people took over from that. But I know as time's gone on, technology presents itself, information comes about, you start discovering, like places where some of these suspects may have been, that you're trying to vet out, and they've done a good job at going and doing the best they can searching. But a lot of it's like a needle in a haystack. I mean, they're still trying to look for that needle. But what my hope is tomorrow there's some bit of technology or some piece of information that comes out that connects those dots. You know, any of those dots really. And so we just don't know what's going to be invented tomorrow that would help us look back at all that and analyze it. I do know with all of our cold cases, and it's pretty standard in our profession, I think, you know, technology and the way we do things has really come a long ways in 2-3 decades. And so you've got these open cases that are still active, and you have this new piece of technology to come in and look at that. They're applying at least what we have left of information and evidence to see if that produces something more. And some of those cases have. We had bones that were discovered up in the Palisades area, and you know, we had them in our custody for a long, long time. I think it's a group called Othram that does a lot of scientific analysis of bones. We're able to collect DNA from these bones that were, you know, 30, 40 years old, tie them to a family, tie them to a missing person case actually in Wyoming, you know, and sort of close that. So you never know what could happen.
Yeah, you don't. And I'm sure for you, having it now being 23 years, every year around this time, you're like, another year.
Yeah. We're crossing another line there.
Yeah.
Another cycle.
And you're still in touch with the family, I'm sure?
Yeah. And from time to time, and as much as I can. And Audra Burgener, who's Amber's aunt, she's you know, from the get-go kind of been on the forefront for the family and spokesperson, if you will, or whatever, but, you know, helping make sure that we keep Amber's memory alive and make sure that it's not forgotten. And I think, you know, the sheriff's office and we, you know, we're partnering in that because we have that same desire to find Amber, to connect those dots and finish this out. And you know, 23 years later, you got all these other cases across the state, and I'm not super familiar with them, but I know there's a number of missing persons cases. And really, you know, if we're taking a moment to think about Amber's case, we're really taking a moment to think about all of those, and make sure that they're remembered and that those are still open cases, that there's other detectives, investigators, and officers like me that really want to see those last dots connected in their lifetime.
Do you think somebody out there knows something more about this?
I don't know. I hope so. I think there's a good chance someone may have a piece of information that they don't realize is significant, that could be significant later. And what I know from, you know, tips and information that comes to the sheriff's office is, you know, someone sees a story about this case or reads about it on the internet, or this yearly anniversary comes around and we put a release out and someone says, you know, I was around there and this, and now I remember this thing happened, or I saw this, and they'll let us know about it. And we'll take that and go vet it as best as we can, and at least, you know, try to put that on the list and compare to what we have and see if that is anything remotely helpful. It may not be right now, but tomorrow it might be. Tomorrow it might be the thing that makes all the difference.
Right, so they should contact you, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, anything you want to add, anything you want people to know about this?
I just think it's important for people to remember all of these cases and remember there's families tied to them, you know, that are still searching for their loved ones. There's a lot of work being done across the board, you know. If you've ever paid attention to the National Center for Missing and Exploiting Children, I mean, they do a ton of great work, and they keep those memories alive and those active searches going. You know, everywhere across the country, there are people that are dedicated to doing great work at finding missing people, adults and children, and I think every chance we get, I think our community is really supportive of that and cognizant of that amongst all the other things happening in the world today. But I really hope people don't ever forget that those resources are out there working to that end.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Sergeant Bryan Lovell with the Bonneville County Sheriff's Office. Again, if you know anything, call the police. They could use any tips that might, like he said, might lead to solving this thing. Thank you.